All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we are going to now get into talking about the injury news on David Montgomery, the Lions' star running back, and just how the injuries are really piling up for the Lions. And it's just a lot of it was on defense, but now it's leaked into the offense. And David Montgomery was having a great year. And, we're having a lot of fun with the, Sonic and Knuckles talk with Montgomery and Gibbs and how they were wearing the shoes of those two characters. And now, he's going to be out for the rest of the year with a knee injury. He's going to undergo surgery. And it's a devastating blow to this Lions offense. Like I said, David Montgomery was having a good year. And looking at the Lions' injuries, again, most of it is on defense. They're losing players like Alex Anzalone, and before that, Aiden Hutchinson. Should have started out with Aiden Hutchinson, but still, two important players there. Carlton Davis, Derek Barnes. You're losing corners, safeties, linebackers, defensive tackles. It's just the injuries are really piling up. And I don't know when some of these guys are going to come back. We could see if we could look ahead to the matchup on Sunday they have, because they're going up against the Bears in Detroit, and that could be a game that they drop just because of the amount of injuries. But yeah, you got Anzalone's expected to come back week 17, at least that's what it says here. But yeah, Derek Barnes, injury reserve. Kaminsky, a defensive end, injury reserve. Marcus Davenport, injury reserve. Carlton Davis, out for week 16 at Chicago. Dorsey, defensive back, out. Aiden Hutchinson, we know he's on injury reserve. More players out. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable the amount of injuries that they have dealt with. And like I said, now it's leaked into the offense, and that's a problem. Now, the Lions thankfully still have Jahmyr Gibbs, who has over 1,000 yards. He has 11 touchdowns on the season. Rushing touchdowns on the season, I should say. So, they're going to be okay. At least, you have Jahmyr Gibbs. You have that other running back. And, some of the guys that they have on the depth chart are going to have to step up in Montgomery's absence. But at some point, is this just going to be too much to overcome? And you kind of look at how the playoff picture is shaping out. And now you look at where the Lions are. The Lions still have the 1 seed. But they could very easily drop to the 5. They could very easily drop to the 5. Because you have the Vikings who are tied with them. And you have the Eagles who are tied with them. So we could see a scenario where the Eagles take them for the 1 seed and the Vikings take them for the division. Because if the Vikings win out, the Vikings, they win the NFC North. So the Lions, who have basically had home field advantage this entire time, and, I've kept saying, yeah, it looks like it's going to run through Detroit. Not so fast. Because the Eagles, they don't lose. And the Vikings, they're right there too. So we could see a shift in this NFC playoff picture. Now, I'll talk about it tomorrow. I'll go through the playoff picture on the show tomorrow. So, we'll kind of go through how everything is shaping out at the moment. But like I said, after this week, you could see the Vikings in first place, the Eagles with the 1 seed, and the Lions are a wild card team all of a sudden. So it's really got to be... Look, I think if there's any team that can handle it, they're one of the teams that I think can. But at some point, it's going to be too much. And, if they go into the playoffs and they're this banged up, I don't know if they're going to make it to the Super Bowl. Because right now, the way the Eagles are playing, I think if the Eagles and the Lions play each other right now, the Eagles are winning. And that game could be played in Philly, for all we know, instead of Detroit. So they're in a tough spot right now. They really are, and it's unfortunate because this fan base has waited so long for this team to be successful, and they got a taste of that last year. Well, they got more than just a taste. I mean, that team made it all the way to the NFC Championship game. But now, the way they were looking, they looked like they were going to be on their way to going to another Super Bowl or going to a Super Bowl. And right now, I don't know if I could say that definitively because you got other teams that are healthier right now. And yeah, I mean, I could definitely see a world where they're like maybe a first round exit if these injuries continue to pile up. Now, it's not because I think, they go up against another team that they're just going to get destroyed. No. Because this offense is going to put up points. It's just the defense, can they get stops? And that's why, Dan Campbell's going for an onside kick with 12 minutes left in the game because the defense just can't stop the Bills. But now you got all these other offenses. You got the Eagles offense you're going to have to deal with. Look at how the Buccaneers offense is doing, and we'll get into them in the next segment. Then you also have, the Rams and their offense. The Vikings. I mean, the Packers and the Commanders now. Jane Daniels has looked better these last few weeks now that he's getting healthier. I mean, these offenses, going up against the banged-up Lions defense, you're going to have to keep up with them, and I think the Lions will. But now you're dealing with injuries to the offense. And losing David Montgomery is tough. So the offense is going to be under more pressure. And, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to have to take on a very heavy workload. Because, they had a nice balance. Montgomery would, take drives. Gibbs would take drives. It was a nice rotation. But now you don't really have that. You don't have that luxury. So I know it sounds like I'm like off the lines right now. But I'm just saying this is what could happen. They could be an early round exit in the playoffs because of these injuries. Because if their defense can't get any stops, it's going to be tough to win games. You're going to have to outscore people. You're going to have to do what the Bengals have been doing all year, is putting up 30-plus points and still losing games. So, yeah, it's tough, but I think this is something that they could still overcome. And some of these guys will come back, but, Montgomery's not going to come back. So, how are they going to respond to it? They got the Bears. They got the 49ers these next two games. I think they should win both of them. They also and then they have the Vikings the final week of the season. Now, that game is at home. So, at least you have that. But these last three games have become very important because you got two teams that are right behind you that actually, no, are next to you now, that you can't afford to slip up these final 3 weeks. Otherwise, you could either be the 2 seed or you could be the 5 seed. And that's something that I didn't expect just by how everything was shaping out this whole year. Well, in the beginning, the Vikings, they started off undefeated, and, the Lions were second. But then, they won that game against them. They took over first place, and they haven't looked back since then. But now, with all these injuries, and what's crazy is it's just the Lions' second loss of the season. And we're talking about, with 3 games to go, yeah, they could be the 5 seed. But again, Philadelphia caught fire, and the NFC North is the best division in football. Vikings still have only 2 losses. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how these final few weeks shape out. The Lions, look, they control their own destiny still. You win out, you got home field advantage. You're good. And you know what? They're a team that really does need it. Because if you can get that bye, maybe you get some of these guys back. It seems like they're going to get Anzalone back. Some of the other guys on defense, I'm sure they're going to get back. But then there's obviously some that aren't going to come back. Montgomery's not coming back on offense, like I said. But they could get healthy enough where they'll be in a good spot. But they got to get through these final 3 games, and they got to hope that they get a win. And I do think that the Chicago game coming up is going to be a little bit tough. But we'll see. They're coming off of a loss. Maybe, you know what? They say, hey, there's people out there that are now going to start doubting us because of the injuries. Let's prove them wrong. And I think they can do that. But only time will tell. But it's just tough news for them. You know, everything was looking good for them, and then all of a sudden these injuries these last few weeks have really stacked up. And like I said, you know, you're going up against a healthy Philadelphia team. I don't know if you're going to win. I don't know if they're going to beat the Vikings the final week of the season either, with the amount of injuries they have on defense. You know, it's really going to be up to Jared Goff and that offense to really keep up with whoever they go up against. And, yeah, look, Jared Goff, 5 touchdown passes, almost 500 yards passing, and they still lost the game. You know, I'm not saying that that's going to happen these final 3 weeks where Goff's going to have these great games and they're still going to lose, but it's possible. Because that's, you know, how poor the Lions defense has been, you know, these last couple games. You know, you gave up 31 points against the Packers, and now you gave up 48 points to the Bills. Now, part of that was, you know, the onside kick attempt kind of helped the Bills out because Matt Collins almost scored that, and then the Bills immediately scored a touchdown on that possession. But, yeah, no, the Lions defense has not been good these last 2 weeks, and a lot of that has to do with injuries. You know, not just in their secondary, their linebackers, their front set. It's all over the place. But look, they got to put up points, which I think they will. And look, all you got to do is win out. And they'll get that bye, and then they can get some of those guys back. But we'll have to wait and see. But it is a tough road ahead. You know, none of these games that they have coming up, I believe, are gimmies. Because the Bears played them tough the first time. Now that's a road game for the Lions. You got the Niners who, look, I know they've had a very disappointing year. But, and they're dealing with injuries as well. It's part of the reason why the season has gone the way it has for them. But, you know, now the Lions are dealing with injuries of their own. So, you know, the 49ers could exploit that a little bit. And that could be a competitive game. And then you got the Vikings the final week of the season who are relatively healthy as well. So, yeah, no, none of these games coming up for the Lions are gimmies. So we'll see how they perform in those spots. But let me know what you guys think, though, about these injuries for the Lions. You know, what were your takeaways from the game on Sunday? What were, you know, how do you see this Montgomery injury impacting this team? Like I said, they got Jahmyr Gibbs still, so at least you have him. It's going to be more pressure on him. And like I said, more pressure on the offense because they got to be perfect now, near perfect. You know, you can't afford to have slow starts like you did against the Bills because, you know, you could fall behind and then you're playing catch-up again. So, you know, we'll see how they respond this week against the Bears. I think they will win the game. But I think it's going to be a close game. I think the Bears are going to give them a hard time. We'll see what happens. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about all the Lions injury news. So we're going to take our final break of the show. And then when we come back, we will discuss the Buccaneers and their win over the Chargers and just, you know, how well Baker Mayfield played along with Mike Evans. Right now the Bucs are in first place in the NFC South, and it looks like it's possible that, you know, they win this division. So we'll kind of get into their performance against the Chargers, how that kind of all unfolded. So make sure to stick around for one final time, and that is what we will discuss when we come back. So yeah, make sure to stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.